Hey, Quentin. Last month, I almost quit making these, but then I didn't. It is June now, which means the summer movie season is in full swing. There are so many things I am looking forward to watching this summer, but before that, let's take a look back at the month that was.
Gaming Cookie Guy
Entertainment.
On May the 4th, the summer movie season officially kicked off by me watching Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And to answer the question on everybody's mind, yes, I did cry, but no, it's not where you think. So this movie had good visuals, fun characters, an engaging story. It was really a Marvel throwback. Yeah, I did have some issues with it. For one, I think it's the weakest soundtrack out of the three movies. Not that the songs themselves were a bad choice. I just don't think it was really woven into the story like it was with the first two movies. And they had less of a thematic, connective tissue to them. And then my other issue was how the villain was handled, but you would know all about that if you watched my Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 rewrite video. Please watch it if you haven't. I like it. I like doing the rewrite videos. Like, these are fun too, but I prefer doing those. So please check it out if you haven't already. But yeah, good movie, solid trilogy, which is not always easy to do in a franchise, especially not always easy in the MCU. So good on you, James Gunn. We thank you for your time. Wish you nothing but the best over at DC. You've saved a galaxy. Now go save a universe. I give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, directed by James Gunn, a 7 out of 10. On May 12th, this rarely happens, but I heard about a movie, watched a trailer, and then immediately watched the movie, all back to back to back. Like, I usually go into an evening having a rough idea of something I'm going to watch, something off the watch list, something new. But in this case, it just genuinely caught my eye, got my attention, and I immediately watched the product. And this was the Apple TV Plus documentary, Still, a Michael J. Fox movie. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't typically watch a ton of documentaries for whatever reason. Honestly, it's probably just that real life is just not something I want to watch. I watch movies to escape, so why bother? But like I said, this one hooked me, and I'm glad that it did because I really enjoyed it. I think it was really well made, how they edited the footage between present day Michael J. Fox being interviewed, in between some segments that were filmed especially for this, and then right into actual TV and film footage from Michael J. Fox's career. It was all seamless. It didn't feel like I was watching a 2-hour interview, which, let's be honest, that's what this was. But the fact that it didn't feel like that, I think, was a good thing. And I think that's what the team behind this was going for. Yeah, it's hard to tell in documentaries, where the lines are, where they play with the narrative. So I can't say whether or not everything we saw on screen was 100% how it all happened. In fact, it probably wasn't, but it felt like an honest portrayal, and I think that's about as much as we can ask for. I'm just happy to say that I liked Michael J. Fox going into this, and I liked him even as the credits were rolling. In fact, I probably liked him all that much more. And so I give Still, a Michael J. Fox movie directed by David Guggenheim, an 8 out of 10.
The sad sack story is Michael J. Fox gets this debilitating disease and it crushes him.
Yeah, that's boring.
The next day, on May 13th, I watched what I had actually planned to watch when I ended up stumbling upon Still, and then that got my attention. I watched the new Damon Affleck joint, Air. And I would need to know the story behind the story behind the story about this movie's title, because it seems like someone really wanted a colon more to that title than just Air, because it was marketed as Air Courting a Legend, and now on Prime the poster has Air colon a story of greatness. So someone is fighting someone on what the title of this movie is, even though they did just settle on Air. And to be honest, whoever fought for that colon, maybe they had some ammunition, because even when I was writing this script, I Googled Amazon Prime Air, and this movie was far and away not the first search result. Title aside, I liked this movie, a lot. I cared absolutely zero for the story that was going on behind the scenes. But the acting was so strong, the writing was so strong, it could have been about anything, and I would have been into it. I really do hope this makes it some money back over time, or it's shown to be a good investment, return on investment, because I want Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's new studio, Artist Equity, to be a success and to keep making cool movies like this. It might be too early to call, but I think between Air, Tetris, Blackberry, the Flamin' Hot movie, we can maybe call this the year of the brand, the year of the corporate drama. I give Air, no colon, just Air, directed by Ben Affleck, a 7 out of 10. On May 18th, I rewatched what I had at one time listed as my favorite movie of the year, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. I said that like now it's my most hated. No, I still like this movie a lot. One thing I did notice this time, especially after now having seen Guardians Volume 3 and the Super Mario Brothers movie, is the lack or the space where there could have been needle drops in this movie. And it would have been cool. I'm sure they would have come up with some cool song like they did in the trailer, some rock song, some whatever song to put in this movie and have a great action scene set to it. But they chose restraint. They used the film's score during all scenes, during action scenes. There were no needle drops in this movie, and I really respect that decision. Nothing else to say, really. I still pined for Pine and Sophia Lillis, and I give Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, directed by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, a 7 out of 10. Oh, and the actress that plays the bald woman, her last name is Head. I'm sure that's a coincidence, but we'll never know for sure.
Braid.
On May 19th, on the back of rewatching D&D, I checked out the directing duo's last movie, 2018's Game Night. It has a lot of charm, much like D&D. The problem, I think, is just that the story is one we've seen a lot more of, and it's a lot more constraining. There's only so many directions you can take a story like this, to the point where it's very easy as an audience to just overthink and stop enjoying what you're watching. At least that was my experience. If you're a viewer who can let yourself be taken moment to moment in a mystery type movie and enjoy those reveals when they happen and not get too caught up with them, you'll probably get way more mileage out of this than I did. Now, the cast itself is great. I liked all the characters. I especially love the side plot between Kylie Bunbury and Lemoyne Morris's characters. They had a great scene, gave me the single biggest laugh out of any movie in a while. So I do recommend this for a pretty good time. I give Game Night, directed once again by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, a 5 out of 10. So one of my personal, all-time, absolute favorite things to do is to introduce my friends to movies that I absolutely love. And on May 20th, I got to do just that with the movie When Harry Met Sally. And yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this. Not much has changed since I watched it earlier this year. I still absolutely love this movie, and I hope my friend did too. I once again give When Harry Met Sally, directed by Rob Reiner, a 10 out of 10. And look at that, it's already in the 10 out of 10 club. After we finished watching When Harry Met Sally, which was my pick to watch that night, we had some extra time, and so he got to pick what we watched for the double feature, and he landed on Annihilation. Side note, I now know how to spell Annihilation thanks to this movie, so that's a positive takeaway. So I knew we were probably eventually going to watch this movie, as we're basically working our way through Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman's whole IMDb page. But I went in with an open mind, and minor spoiler for the movie, the subgenre of horror in this film is body horror, which happens to be my least favorite kind of horror. Like, hack and slash all you want. I go nuts. But the moment you show me something truly disturbing, that is when I will be awake all night. Add on to that an ending that didn't quite land for me. A solid idea all throughout, but the ending just didn't quite bring it all together. And this is just a movie that was kind of destined to fail for me personally. And so I give Annihilation, directed by Alex Garland, a 3 out of 10. On May 25th, with my Paramount Plus subscription soon to expire, I dug into my watch list and pulled out the 2001 teen comedy Ghost World. I don't typically have a ton of patience for the teen genre movie. I didn't even finish Booksmart. I probably shouldn't have said that. Whatever. I value its place in society. It's just, it's so rare that a teen movie works for me, and this one really did. Yes, the two leads, played by Thora Birch and Scarlett Johansson, they had that typical know-it-all, better-than-you, smart aleck teen movie tropey things, but they made it in a way where you could see both sides. The audience could get some perspective on it. We weren't locked into their point of view of things. We're allowed to think that they're flawed losers because the movie acknowledges that everybody is a flawed loser. I do recommend this movie. It's got some really quotable lines all around, but a word of warning, it's very much a product of its time, 2001, so it doesn't quite meet a lot of present day social sensibilities. So if that is something you're sensitive to, then probably just skip this one.
I'll have a decaf mocha to go.
One decaf mocha? Decaf mocha. Can I get you?
No, I do not want a biscotti with that.
God. How can you stand all these assholes? Some people are okay, but mostly I just feel like poisoning everybody.
Although you'll be missing out on Steve Buscemi at his most endearing, which is something I never thought I would think. I give Ghost World, directed by Terry Zwigoff, who has maybe the strangest collection of directing credits I've ever seen. I give it a 7 out of 10. On May 26th, I watched Hugh Jackman and Laura Dern do their absolute best to make a movie watchable when I watched Florian Zeller's sophomore film, The Son. Now let's zoom out for a second. Let's get some perspective. Who am I? I am a 20-something white guy with a microphone and a half dozen YouTube viewers on a good day. I am nobody. Who am I to say whether or not a movie is quote-unquote bad? I can say I didn't like a movie, sure, but can I really say, having absolutely zero experience in the art of filmmaking, that any work is bad? Anyway, this movie is bad. So Florian Zeller's last movie, The Father, was interesting because it gave the viewer the experience of what it is like to have Alzheimer's, at least to the best of its ability. This movie, at best, gives the audience the experience of not having adolescent depression, but dealing with somebody who has it, which is a weird line to toe, and this movie doesn't always handle it the best. I'm not even sure who the titular son is supposed to be. Now, maybe that's intentional, but either way, I think it should be clear to the audience who the subject of the movie is. Like I said up top, all the actors try their best, including Zen McGrath, who is dealt a really tough hand, does not do the best with it, or maybe he does, and we just can't tell because the movie refuses to give us a chance to see things from his point of view. It just gives him nonsense to spew over and over and over repetitively again.
Just tell me in your own words.
It's life. It's weighing me down.
Maybe I can't say this movie is bad. In fact, I probably can't. But I can certainly say that I had a bad time with it. And so I give The Son, directed by Florian Zeller, a 1 out of 10. In order to wash that movie away from my screen, I followed it up with another one from my watch list. This is Locke, starring Tom Hardy. And when I say starring, I mean starring. He's the only one who even showed up to set. After not being able to hear Tom Hardy or understand him in Dark Knight Rises, Dunkirk, Mad Max, like half of all of his work, I cannot understand the guy. I think this tips the scales by it being literally Tom Hardy talking for like 80 minutes straight, and honestly, I am all for it. In fact, he's doing a pretty cool accent. I could listen to that all day. Despite taking place in one location with absolutely no reliance on visuals, this movie is still incredibly engaging, led by an incredibly interesting character. In a world where superhero movies are icons, I want to grow up to be just like Ivan Locke. He is my hero. And I just hope and I pray that one day I can love something as much as Ivan Locke loves concrete.
Ivan,
Listen to me. You listen to me. I want the poor to go okay, not because of the money. I want it to go right for myself and for the building, right, and for the concrete.
I give Locke, directed by Stephen Knight, a 9 out of 10. On May 28th, I couldn't sleep. It was like 1 a.m., so I decided to put on something simple, something where if I didn't finish it, if I fell asleep during it, I could finish it in the morning or I could just skip it entirely. And so I put on the DC animated movie All-Star Superman, and I watched the entire thing. So I guess I'm more of a Marvel guy. I don't know. I'm still trying to understand who Superman is. I know the comic book readers understand him. But as someone who only knows Superman through the movies, I am still trying. And this was probably the closest I have come to seeing what the comic book readers already see. And actually, unfortunately, I think the problem with this movie is it might be too similar to a comic book. It may be too faithfully adapted, which is weird to say. Because everything in this feels really, really disjointed, like reading different chapters in an anthology rather than telling one complete story, which is what I wish we got here. However, I'm now optimistic. I do think that if James Gunn ever gives us anything like this in live action, I might finally get the Big Blue Boy Scout. I give All-Star Superman, directed by Sam Liu, a 4 out of 10. Ho ho ho! Fasten your seatbelts, because finally on May 31st, the end of the road began. I watched Fast X. And not only is it about family, now it's about faith. Or maybe it's always been about faith, or at least for the last couple movies. I don't know. I haven't watched one of these since Fast 5. I was just really bored on a Wednesday night, and I decided to go see this. And you know what? It was a great way to escape reality for a couple hours, and I don't regret watching it. Jason Momoa was fun. That's about all I remember. Side story, and for context, I watch most of these movies alone, especially when I'm going to a theater. It's usually last minute, or I don't know, for whatever reason, I go see a lot of movies alone. And never once has my mom ever expressed really any interest in joining me in that endeavor. Now, I'm not against it, but it's never come up before. Until I told her I saw Fast X, and she was like, "Oh, why didn't you invite me? I wanted to go see it." I was like, "Fast X? That's the one? That's the one movie out of all the ones I've seen? Like, you could have come see The Whale with me. I don't know." No, Fast X. I feel like I learned a lot about her in that moment. So I guess joke's on me. It really was about family. I give Fast X, directed by Louis Leterrier, a 4 out of 10. And Quentin, that is all for May. That is a wrap on May. I hope you're staying cool in the summer heat. I know I will, because movie theaters are air conditioned, and that's where I will be for a lot of June, catching new releases like Transformers Rise of the Beast, The Flash, Indiana Jones, Asteroid City, and of course, the follow-up to one of my favorite films of all time, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. If you want to hear my thoughts on all of those, I don't know why you would want to do that, but you can next month, and I'll see you then.